It's an honor to stand among such people with such defiance. I don't know what this is. I tried to write it to sum up where we are. Some of you are going to hate it. Maybe not, I don't know, but I'll just tell it as it is. Words matter. Words alter lives. Words change worlds. Even the Bible opens with, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Whether you believe or not is immaterial. It's still one hell of an introduction to the Word. When the printing press arrived, the widespread publishing of previously unattainable books caused a revolution that rocked the power base in Europe. Access to formerly forbidden words accelerated the Renaissance and sowed the seeds for the Enlightenment. And after we had allowed people in power to control us for so long with taxes and faith and fear, those people in control realized that the free flow of information might blow our tiny little peasant minds, so they began burning books. The core tenets of the Enlightenment were knowledge, freedom, and happiness. Those rabid political censors back then didn't succeed in preventing the birth of that rational humanity, but they haven't stopped trying. Our new printing press is the internet, and today's book burnings are censorship and cancel culture. The only thing history teaches us is that history teaches us nothing, which is why, once again, we find ourselves in such dark times. Information is power, knowledge is gold, and wisdom unlocks both, which might be why those in power are eternally obsessed with controlling all three. The largest library in the history of humankind is at the end of your fingertips on your phone, but the controlling class are better prepared now. They know the danger of words. They know the power of words. They know how to weaponize words. They know that the correct words have always revealed the truth, and the same words corrupted have always concealed the lie. But now they know that to maliciously invert the meaning of words leads to the mass sedation of the soul. Book burning is no longer enough for them. Censoring the words is not enough. The N word, the F word, the C word, the L, the G, the B, the T, and the Q words, they're all taken. With only 26 letters in the alphabet, there are only 26 words to censor. So the controlling class has had to go further. They have had to take a leap into the unknown, into the absurd, into the insane. They couldn't just alter the meaning of words, they had to invert them, subvert them, render them ridiculous. They had to attack reality, destroy truth, worship the lie. They had to rob the Enlightenment of its rational humanity by raping the rational and destroying the humanity. They had to replace the core tenets of knowledge, freedom, and happiness with dehumanizing propaganda, intellectual imprisonment, and a relentlessly foreboding sense of dread. Recognize the pattern? And they had to convince us that the resurrection of the old abnormal is the lovely new normal. They now teach racism and sexism in our schools and universities. They celebrate the politics of division fueled by gender, skin color, and sexuality. But because they drape these teachings with the banner of inverted phrases like diversity, equity, and inclusion, inherently decent people ignore our own rational minds and embrace this destructive absurdity. Our tutors may not be able to teach kids reading or writing, or the most basic forms of critical thinking, but at least they are experts on the 107 genders. The controlling class know that if we can be coerced into inverting the truth of words, many kind and compassionate people can be convinced that concepts like knowledge, freedom, and happiness are for fools, and that anybody who doesn't believe that the new lie is now a fact is the enemy and must be destroyed. Having infected our schools, our universities, our banks, our judicial system, our political system, and our very democracy with these gender wars, race divisions, and the weaponization of children to push private adult sexuality into obscene public circuses, our government's obsessive need to criminalize words and thoughts through censorship has created the perfect smokescreen to hide the most damaging and sustained systemic prejudice of them all: class prejudice. The working class dream used to be to stay in school, get a job, a trade, join a union, fall in love, save enough to put a down payment on a little home, start a family, raise kids, live a good life, retire in peace, and enjoy your old age with the grandkids. These were the most basic expectations of a functioning society, the most fundamental protections. Not anymore. Imagine the men and women of 1916 waking up in this new normal of ours, where pride in your nation is the new racism, where questioning insane government policy is the new fascism, where a bunch of cowards are the new heroes, and where a man with a penis is the new woman. Trans lives matter, except when they're poor. LGBTQ lives matter, except when they're working class. Black lives matter, except when they're unborn. Women's lives matter, except when they're women. Children's lives matter too, except when they're getting their throats slit outside their school in the middle of the day by some ideologically driven madman, who the media and government still won't allow us to know anything about. Yet every working class protester arrested for rioting in reaction to that attempted murder had their name and address splattered across every news agency the very next day. And in an official speech by our Minister for Justice, they were referred to as that word we are all too happy to use when it comes to the working class: scumbags. Does anybody believe that the controlling class give a damn about our children? Infecting schools with fairy tales so disturbing they convince vulnerable boys and girls that taking beta blockers and making plans for profit margin motivated surgeons to hack off their breasts or slice into their genitalia will somehow make heroes of these lost children long into their destroyed adulthood. Children are props to them. Palestinian children, Israeli children, Ukrainian children, any children that can be used as a poster child for whatever the agenda of the day is. Ask the parents suffering from scoliosis if politicians give a damn. Our government couldn't find the funding to treat a couple of hundred of those beautiful boys and girls, but they had no problem coming up with the 84 million for truckloads of useless vaccines that they just dumped. Ask the people who carry their children out of their repossessed homes if our politicians or courts give a damn. Our government couldn't find the funding to protect owners in a crisis during the economic collapse, but they had no problem finding 41 billion to bail out the corrupt banks. Ask the politicians, or ask the people who want to raise a family but can't afford a home if our courts or politicians or financial institutions give a damn. Our government couldn't source the funding to build affordable housing for tax-paying Irish citizens who gave everything to this country, but those politicians had no problem pumping tens of billions into a border crisis big enough to leave the country broke and broken for generations to come. Children's lives matter, yeah, except when they're Irish. As mothers and fathers, as sons and daughters, as brothers and sisters and friends and allies, as Irish men and Irish women, as the generous citizens of one of the most beautiful nations on earth, we have given everything, but those in power still wanted more. We were patient until our patience was mistaken for hesitancy and they manipulated us. We were kind until our kindness was mistaken for naivety and they exploited us. We were innocent until our innocence was mistaken for weakness and they attacked us. The human species developed instincts to protect ourselves. Look at the people exploiting us, our so-called leaders. These CEOs of these NGOs, these bosses of RTE, ESB and AIB, the leaders of our unions and the heads of our universities. Who are these people? Look at their physicality. We know instinctively what kind of people they are. Listen to them. At the top of their voices, these controlling class psychopaths are telling us exactly who they are. Yet we refuse to hear. How did we empower the weakest among us to protect the pack? How did we hand our children's future over to these people? How did we allow these excuses for men and women to lead us? How did we trust the most avaricious with our banking policies? How did we invite foreign vulture funds to feed on the carcasses of our fellow countrymen? How did we allow avowedly childless men and women to run our child protecting agencies? How did we allow NGOs to profit off our homeless people, our vulnerable children, our national borders, and our very futures? Look at them. Look them in the eye. Your instinct tells you the nature of who they are. In any other time before the last century was cursed by modern politics, these cartoon characters would have been mocked by the rest of the tribe for the absurdity of their power-grabbing aspirations. Today, they are leading us. And we haven't simply allowed these gimps and freaks and degenerates to run the country, we have allowed them to run it into the ground. If our forefathers knew what we would be allowing to happen in the future, they'd have done a damn sight more than mere mocking, and we would have deserved it. Why would anybody entrust these people with our children's futures? You wouldn't let them babysit your children. Why would anyone trust them with our children for 5 minutes? These dangerous people have facilitated financial institutions to pick at the scabs of the banking collapse to keep the national wound open and raw and fresh for the taking. 18% of all mortgages in this country has been sucked up by foreign vulture funds. State-owned banks, which means taxpayer-owned, have sold the mortgages of countless Irish citizens to those foreign vulture funds, and some of us citizens don't even know it has happened. We won't know until we think we have paid off our mortgage and try to sell our house, or we are deceased and our children try to sell. Only then will we realize that all the mortgages forced into arrears by bastard banks facilitated by corrupt courts, an astonishing 52% are being fed on by those vulture funds. Only then will we discover the true cost of having invited vampires into our children's homes. We know they're not really vampires. They're just vulture funds. We know they're not really vultures. They're just thieves. We know they're not really thieves. They're just business people sucking the lifeblood out of the vulnerable for profit. That's how inversion works. When we willingly refer to blood-sucking vampires as simple business people, and our courts and our banks and our government reward those foreign vulture funds by handing over even more Irish homes to them, words have lost all meaning. How else would it have been possible to turn the word thief into the word banker, to turn the word killer into the word politician, to turn the word liar into the word judge, man into woman, abuser into protector, compassion into killing, the second-degree murder of 11 travellers into an accident, and the first-degree murder of Terence Wheelock into a statistic? Words matter. Words alter lives. Words change worlds. Without words, we are lost. Without words, we are easy prey. Without words, we lose sight. Without words...
Bring up the mic. Bring it up.
Without words, we lose sight of the fact that the truth of a single word, declared clearly and unambiguously, can still cut through all the ideological noise and divisive smokescreens and sum up precisely what these banks and politicians and controlling class psychopaths are doing to our country. And that word is treason.
Mr. Terry Mcmahon, thank you very much indeed. We're all so grateful that you're here with us.